I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Visitor Network TV. Our guest today is Margaretta Andrews, the Executive Director of the Community Foundation for Nantucket.
Hi.
Nice to see you, Margaretta.
Nice to see you
Happy New
too.
Year. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming back.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It has.
But some exciting things have been going on at the Community Foundation, and I thought it would be worth having you talk about them and having people hear what's going on.
Sure.
I mean, maybe you can just give us a brief overview of sort of how things have developed with the foundation in the last 5 years since it's really...
Well, how about 6.5 years since I started working there? I can't believe it's been that long. I know, yeah. Let's see, when I came in 2008, it was a very, very small organization. Part-time employee, we had, I think at that point, 7 funds, maybe $300,000 worth of assets under management. At the end of last year, we had 72 funds and $3.5 million in assets. So I'm thinking that we've grown a lot in the last 6 years.
Pretty good
plus.
Rate of growth.
It is. It is. Still small by Community Foundation standards. There are over 1,500 community foundations across the world, 750 or so in the United States. We're probably one of the newest and smallest, but growing every day.
Oh, that's great. And you have this special thing called the Nantucket Fund.
Yes, we do.
Why don't you tell us about that?
We do. Actually, the Nantucket Fund is a name that we've trademarked. It is the fund through which we process our community grants. We have an annual process every year. We've done this now for 8 years. It is an application process to our local nonprofits. They submit a grant application for projects they're working on, operational support, special initiatives, just depending on what their needs are. And we have a pool of dollars that are available each year that come from various sources. The Sconset Chapel Outreach Fund has been a primary source of funding for the Nantucket Fund since its inception. And let's see, it started with probably $15,000 total, 16 perhaps in 2007. And last year, this means 2014, we were able to give away $105,000 to 27 distinct nonprofits in Nantucket.
Which, as I understand it, was essentially a 100% increase over the prior year.
It was. In 2013, we had about $52,000 to 25 nonprofits, and the Community Foundation's board decided that their number one project, initiative, focus for 2014 was to double that grant. So various sources, private donors. We were successful in recruiting now 8 individuals to pledge $10,000 for 5 years to the Nantucket Fund, specifically for community grants. Marcia Kodolak is the chair of our grants committee. Last year she started a raffle. I think we had 400 and some distinct purchases of $10 tickets. We were able to net $12,000 in 2013 and $13,000 last year on individual $10 tickets.
She works hard on that.
She works hard on that. And thank you to every single Nantucketer that actually purchased a ticket. We appreciate your support. So yeah, it was, our hope is that for 2015 that we will yet again double that amount and be able to give away $200,000 this year.
Are there any stipulations about how much of the money goes to different kinds of organizations, whether it be human services or health or arts or whatever?
All those good things that happen on Nantucket. The Sconset Chapel Outreach Fund is specifically designated for human services initiatives and has been that way since they started giving to us in 2007. We had a community forum, kind of a conversation with some community members this fall. We purport ourselves to be the professionals on where the needs are in Nantucket, and we thought we probably should start asking the community where they thought the needs were. So we had, I think, 15 people in a room discussing the needs that are the most prevalent in Nantucket, and housing, affordable housing, came up as the #1 need on the island. No surprise to anybody.
Isn't it broader than affordable housing? Isn't it more?
It is. Affordable housing is really the focus in terms of the funding opportunities, but housing in general is pretty crazy on the island, as we all know. Second to that was mental health and substance abuse. We're kind of tied for second, and then we saw some significant needs in after-school childcare, specifically this year with the Boys and Girls Club being closed for a chunk of the fall. Affordable transportation year-round is an issue.
Spring, isn't it?
Oh, sorry, so for the spring. Yeah, exactly, exactly. So yeah, there's some things. So when we had our applications in front of us this year, we had that information, and we tried to be very strategic with where those dollars went.
And you made one large grant,
did.
much larger than the others. And what was that for?
We did. That was to Housing Nantucket. They had a joint project with the Nantucket Housing Authority. Sachems Path, I think, is something that everybody has seen that's already under construction.
On Surfside Road.
On Surfside Road, exactly. After, I think, 15 years, they finally have broken ground. But the Housing Authority is doing a specific needs assessment for housing on the island. It's time to find out really where the houses are that are available, what the needs are of the community. It hasn't been done, as far as I understand it, for many, many years. The last one might have been 10 years ago, and I think the needs have changed quite a bit. The community has changed quite a bit. So it might be time to start talking about...
It's really workforce housing, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's not just affordable in the sort of legal sense, but it's...
This is young people who want to stay here.
Or professionals
professionals who come here.
Who have jobs but no place to live.
Exactly. And even housing at any cost has been, year-round housing has been a challenge. I have a daughter who lives here and wants to stay here, and year-round housing is hard at any dollar amount.
That's right.
It really has been. I think it might be time to start talking about apartments. We've talked about it before. It might be time to, but this needs assessment, we feel strongly, is going to direct that conversation.
That's good. I heard actually that the town is working now with Housing Nantucket and also has some kind of grant from Maine to start working on for fairgrounds.
Great.
I just heard that this morning. So,
Yeah.
But they're tuned into what Housing Nantucket is working on too, which is good.
They are. And I think to have that one organization driving that process, but everybody participating makes total sense.
Yeah,
so as a
absolutely.
funder, we were thrilled to have that opportunity.
What are some of the other areas that you focus on?
We really look to kind of the fabric of the community, rental assistance, food pantry, things where our residents are most at risk. We had an interesting grant last year in 2013 to Nantucket Family Planning, which is part of the Health Imperatives of Massachusetts. And in accepting that grant, the woman who was not local but came in and to accept the grant made a really compelling speech to the audience, which was assembled to all the grant recipients, about how Nantucket has the highest incident of the working poor. These are people who are working sometimes 1, 2, or 3 jobs and still can't make ends meet. And so that really speaks to some of the unique challenges that we find on Nantucket. So any opportunity to shore those organizations up that are providing relief there is something that we look at very closely.
What about the immigrant community? Are they affected at all by these grants?
One of the things that was part of the diversity conversation was part of the roundtable discussion that we had in the fall. And it's hard because there doesn't seem to be an entity that is specifically in support of our immigrant workers, some of the challenges that they face, but a lot of the local groups are doing some work around that. The Athenaeum has the Literacy Volunteers. We support that program every year, and we're finding some of the employers on the island, specifically landscapers, are requiring that their workers actually participate in that program to work for them, which I think is brilliant. It helps to assimilate these groups into the community in a very positive way instead of isolating them out. Linda Loring, I know you're involved in Linda Loring Foundation. They have done some work, and you actually could probably describe that a little better than I can, about some signage that's on their properties.
Story Trail.
And Story Trail.
And doing it in Spanish.
Yeah, and we found that was a great
your help.
opportunity. I mean, honestly, that's a grant that we were thrilled to participate in, because it speaks to having those non-English speakers come to a beautiful part of the island and understand what that property is all about. So those are some of the things we want to, again, we are trying to address the needs as they're presented to us. So I encourage any of the nonprofits on the island that have these programs that are running. It's not just a one-shot cycle. We do revolve around that fall focus where the applications come in, we vet them, we have conversations and site visits, and then we give the grants. But we also have some reserves. So if there's any unique opportunity that comes up in the winter or the fall, even the summer or the spring, those would be something that we would take a look at very closely.
What is the next challenge the Community Foundation wants to address?
Well, I think the initiative that I know of for sure that we're going to participate in 2015 is it's called the State of the Sector Survey. It's a national program. It's called the Nonprofit Finance Fund. Has a survey that they've done nationally and in the state of Massachusetts for, I think this is their 8th year. It's literally an online survey. The nonprofits participate, and they have carved out an arm for Nantucket. And so my job for the next couple of months is to encourage our local nonprofits to participate in that survey, to Where are they finding challenges for themselves operationally? Do they provide benefits to their employees? It's a wonderful way to get a snapshot of the nonprofit community as a whole, and to identify community needs that might be specific to Nantucket that all of us can use as grant opportunities.
If a group responds to the questionnaire, it will identify where they are.
Absolutely. It will not give them a unique identifier as to who they are.
Right.
But now that Nantucket has its own arm, we received a grant from the Tower Foundation to partially fund this, and we're looking for other grant makers to try and support this as well. So it's something that, as a community foundation, we felt strongly we wanted to be a part of, because it really is an opportunity for all of our nonprofits to feel like they are part of something as a unit. And there is huge value in the nonprofit community anywhere.
Right.
1 in 6 residents of Massachusetts are employed by nonprofits. I'd say Nantucket has a pretty good chunk of people that are employed by nonprofits as well.
That's for sure.
There's 107 of them listed on our website, and there's probably a few I don't know about.
When the Community Foundation first came about, there was some concern and pushback from particularly some of the larger nonprofits that were concerned that you would sort of step on their toes from a fundraising standpoint and so forth. Is that not correct?
That's very correct, as I understand it. I was not part of the early years. And I think that early group made a promise to the nonprofit community that we would try not to compete for fundraising dollars. And I think early on that was absolutely the case, because there were no operational needs, because there was no office and there was no staff.
Yeah.
We're growing. So we do have operational needs. And so we have very quietly met those needs very specifically. We've not gone out in a big, loud way. We have an initiative right now underway to find a smaller number of larger donors to perhaps underwrite those operational needs, so that any of the outreach that we do in the community can be around initiatives. Can be around something like this State of the Sector survey, or what can we do to better integrate some of the diverse aspects of our community in a very positive way. That's what we would love to be out there with their hands out for, versus having somebody support our operations. But the reality is that we are growing, and in order to keep things moving.
Certain people need to get paid.
Well, yes, it would be nice.
But you're not sensing any pushback from these organizations anymore.
I don't believe so. I certainly
heard
haven't heard it. I think that we are being more accepted, certainly as a positive force in the community. We've been able to give over $359,000 specifically through the Nantucket Fund in the last 8 years. That's a lot of money to Nantucket that wouldn't have come from anywhere else.
Right.
So that we're very proud of. And our contributions that come to us are really actually quite small. We have many, many, many smaller donors. And right now we are happily going along, hoping that will again be able to cover our operations with a smaller number, so that we don't have to do an annual appeal. Or if we do, that appeal is around something very specific that is much more community-wide.
That's great. Well, thanks for the update. It sounds like you
Anytime.
have your hands full. And you have Gene Miller working with you.
We do. We do.
I think a great addition to
Absolutely.
the staff.
Absolutely. And probably looking to staff up a little bit this year. There's some things coming down the pike that we may need some more bodies around. So
Great. Margaretta Andrews, Community Foundation for Nantucket. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.